this point, comics are modern mythology, full of elaborate lore and constant tragedy. In some cases, the characters are ancient gods themselves. It's safe to say that the most popular gods in the Marvel universe are the Norse gods, see Thor and Loki, but Marvel has adapted mythology from all over the place. In this case, we are heading to ancient Greece, or that's where the inspiration is from anyway. In the Marvel history books, the Amazons and Gorgons were once at war. The Amazons won, and the Gorgons assimilated into their society. The Gorgon race was cursed by Athena to have snake hair, and Delphine vowed to one day lift that curse. This was because of general frustration with the curse, but also because Delphine had fallen in love with a regular man and wanted to be human for him. Unfortunately, the way to do that was to slay Athena. For mortals like you and me, this is an impossible task, but Delphine is a god, so she's got it covered. As a warm-up, she slayed her former royal boss, Princess Artume. Delphine was her top general, but the two didn't see eye to eye on everything, so Delphine took her throne as Queen of the Amazons. This came with many godlike decisions, one of which was very easy for her to make, siding with Hera over Athena. During a scuffle of the gods, Delphine fashions a helmet that will unlock her inner and outer Medusa. Currently, her head of snakes has poisonous venom that can make you go blind, but now, with her helmet, she can turn anyone, even a god, to stone. When Athena becomes a statue, the Gorgon curse is lifted, but then there is a sudden change of plans and Athena is saved, reinstating that curse again. Luckily, her human lover has loved every part and snake of hers all along. The DC universe is also no stranger to Greek mythology, most notably Wonder Woman and the Amazons, but Diana has quite a long lineup of half-siblings out there due to her father, Zeus's activities. Fans are now introduced to Lennox in 2012's Wonder Woman Volume 4 Issue 5. He rocks, he's funny, he's a London boy who keeps up to date with current trends, and he literally feels like a rock. His skin is rock hard, and if you were to deliver a strong enough blow, he would crack instead of scar. Because he is a living demigod and not a statue, he has organic rock powers, meaning the cracks don't last forever, they eventually heal with time. And time he has, he's over 80 years old. As a demigod, he is immortal, but not immune to being killed if you try hard enough. His first discovery of immortality was in World War II. A massive explosion destroyed his neighborhood, and yet all he had to show for it was cracks on the skin and charred clothes. He used this newfound demigodhood to fight in the war and later teamed up with his half-sister, Wonder Woman, to complete various missions. Unfortunately, Lennox's time ran up in issue 22 after he sacrificed himself, holding off the firstborn so everyone could escape. He did father one child in his lifetime that would later become Wonder Girl. Technically, this next guy is and also isn't a god. The Kiwazi tribe is living on oil-rich land in Oklahoma, and to try and get them off, the Red Star Oil Company created a massive robot based on their god, Tumazuma. It was designed to scare the tribe off of their land using powerful vaporizing rays. The robot looked terrifying as it was very tall, durable, and it could move. It was strong enough to lift tanks and could hold up against the thing. While the Tumazuma in the comic was nothing more than an elaborate ruse, the real god is the Kiwazi god of storytelling. The god robot was defeated when a very compact ball-shaped Mr. Fantastic was shot through its mouth. Once inside, he was able to short-circuit the machinery and cause it to explode. In the last panel though, so through some mist, we see that the real god had actually come to fight. We never got to see him throw down though because the Fantastic Four already took care of it. Son of the trickster god Loki, Agamemnon has received one of the worst fates of all, permanent adolescence. He is trapped in a teenage body and must feel the growing pains of that for the rest of eternity. A curse placed upon him by his own father after he was caught stealing Asgardian secrets. Despite this, he is very intelligent and just like his father, a trickster. He can and will manipulate you. He knows all speak, how to use magic, and has a healing factor. He was the creator of something called the Pantheon Organizations. He said that it was to help the improvement of mankind, stocking its most important positions with his own descendants. Unknown to his children, their souls were all promised to the Endless Knights, an unstoppable undead army that once called upon by Agamemnon would slay anything in their path until either his enemy or him was slain. The Endless Knights' final battle and Agamemnon's first last stand takes place in the Incredible Hulk number 424. If you recognize his name, that's because he actually did exist in our history as the King of Argos. Loki's Agamemnon though has neither confirmed nor denied if this was him. There are 4 elder gods in the Marvel Comics, but this point is all about the innovator of the group, Set. The serpent elder god created something the planet had never seen before. He was the first to steal the life force of something else. He discovered that consuming other elder gods transferred their power to him. He was a trendsetter, and pretty soon most of the other gods were doing this too. But anyone who joined in then became a demon. Set even has ties to some fan-favorite heroes. Wanda Maximoff almost joined a witch coven that was devoted to the serpent god. This club used something called the Serpent Crown, gave anyone wearing it powers like telepathy, mind control, and even levitation. The only downside was the serpent god would then have minor control over you and the people around you. Set is based off the Egyptian god Apep, embodiment of disorder and darkness, but named after the other Egyptian god, Set, god of violence. Marvel's Set possesses the ability to be a persistent problem, as he can return from the dead and has very painful venom. Set is also able to see what the average human eye can't, like straight into your soul, for example. He wasn't always shaped like a snake. This form was first generated when Set bonded with Earth's reptile population, particularly the dinosaurs. Set combined different types of dinos to create the snake form we know him in today. Set's influence in the world grew too great, too many gods had turned evil, and Set was causing too many problems on Earth. Eventually, someone had to put a stop to it all. Enter Atum the God Eater, son of Gaia, better known as Mother Earth, and the Demiurge, the planet's life force. Atum was brought in to put an end to the gods consuming each other and turning demonic. He did this by consuming all the evil gods and then turning partially demonic. But this god has morals and didn't want to let evil consume him. He flew up into the atmosphere to fix himself up before heading home, home being the sun. He got all the evil elder gods except 2, Set and Cathon, but they were banished to other realms, so he did still finish the job. Set and Atum did go head to head again a bit later over the dinosaurs. Mother Earth had plans to stop sustaining dinosaurs and instead get to work on mammals. Set, who we know bonded with the dinos, doesn't like this idea. He picks a fight. Mother Earth calls in her son to finish it. This massive battle is what, in the MCU anyway, caused the dinosaurs to go extinct. Set returns to his dimension and Atum to the sun. The next time we see him again, on Earth he takes on a new name, that being Ra, and then eventually Ra the sun god from Egyptian mythology. Up next is a Jekyll and Hyde god situation. The Egyptian lion goddess has 2 modes: Hathor, the peaceful, playful goddess of love, and Sekhmet, the violent war goddess. She acted as a warrior to the sun god Ra whenever the people of Egypt would try and rebel against him. Her war goddess side, once unleashed, is hard to control. Once she was unleashed on Egypt, she slayed half the population before Ra had to step in. The only way to stop her was to trick her into drinking large quantities of beer that Ra dyed red. The hope and successful outcome was that the war goddess would see the red and, thinking it was blood, drink herself unconscious, giving her brain time to settle back into the love goddess. Sekhmet is capable of a male form as well, but this requires a human host. Loki is known for causing trouble and creating troublesome offspring. One of his particularly giant creations wraps all around Earth. The Midgard serpent was originally born the size of your average baby. However, Odin saw a large threat in the small package and as a result, threw the child down to Earth's oceans. Lucky us. It's possible that Odin believed this would kill the serpent, or maybe he just wanted to create an extra long Loch Ness monster. The monster lived, of course, and grew so big that it could wrap around the whole world. A prophecy foretold that Thor and the serpent would battle one day and the fight would result in both of their perishings. The serpent is a tough foe to beat. He's significantly stronger than Thor, he's capable of powerful illusions, and can manipulate the earth slightly, causing floods, earthquakes, tsunamis, and more. Thor was only able to defeat the serpent by using his full strength as well as everything his enchanted hammer could give him. It took the serpent and Thor out, but Thor luckily was revived by his sister Hela, whereas the serpent just disappeared. Our most unique and technically incomplete path to godhood today belongs to Alexander Aaron, or Phobos. He is a son of Ares, an immortal woman, who would typically make someone a demigod. However, Alexander was born mortal. Ares turned his back on the gods to raise his son as normally as possible, much to Zeus's annoyance. The Olympians needed their war god to help with the impending fight with the Japanese god of evil. To get Ares back, Zeus kidnapped Alexander as leverage, but before Ares could get him back, Alex was kidnapped a second time by none other than then the Japanese god of evil. At least Zeus got his wish. Ares was definitely gonna help now. Alexander's god side was awakened when the Japanese god gave him some of his life force to drink. The evil god brainwashed Alexander and pit him against his father. In the midst of the battle, Zeus was able to clear Alexander's brainwashed state, but the damage was done and Alex woke up to Ares at his feet. It was tragic, but it's very hard to kill a god, and Ares was reborn in no time. At this point, with his godhood awakened, Alex is sought out by Nick Fury, and this is when he learns that he will become the next god of fear. This comes with a pretty cool set of powers, a new name, Phobos. Phobos can tell what everyone's greatest fear is and uses his eyes to place the fear in your head. He is also capable of seeing the future. He finds his demise in a fight with a Gorgon, but it's for the best. Technically, even though he drank a god's life force, even though he was named a god, he was still mortal. The only way to reach god status was to die a mortal death and be reborn, so maybe we'll be seeing him again soon. We can't let this video go by without some Canadian representation. Snowbird, my personal favorite from this list, is an Inuit demigod whose main power is shapeshifting, specifically into any animals native to northern Canada. Snowbird's other powers include flight, super strength, and the ability to see the past up to 6 hours. She is skilled in hand-to-hand combat, being trained by none other than Alberta-born hero Wolverine. Snowbird is the daughter of the goddess of the Northern Lights and a mortal man. She was bound to Canadian land so she could take on a human form to be the voice of the gods on Earth. This also means that if she leaves Canada, she gets weaker. She gets even more Canadian when she takes on the cover identity of Anne Mackenzie, RCMP officer. When she became pregnant by a mortal man, the gods were angered and she was banned from the godly realm. That is until her newborn was possessed by the demon Pestilence, aging the baby up. Her possessed son attacked Canada, and the battle to stop him resulted in him, Snowbird's husband, and her to perish, leaving Pestilence to lay dormant again. Snowbird at this point has been released from her earthly tether and is offered a place among the gods, but refuses to go unless her child and husband can come with her. It takes some persuasion, but the gods eventually agree, and we get a rare happily ever after. It doesn't last forever, but she has it for a little while.
Dr. Doom is always a villain that many people already put on a pedestal. So of course, it makes sense that he would eventually get powers to match his status. This all went down during the 2015 Secret Wars event, when Dr. Doom was elevated to the status of not just Emperor, but God, becoming God Emperor Doom, after being the only person willing to challenge the Beyonders during the final moments of the incursion. When everything came crashing down, Doom took the power for himself and built a patchwork-like world out of all the alternate universes that had collided with one another. It was later revealed that to have absolute power and shape reality, he'd actually been using the powers of Molecule Man, who was kept hidden away. Eventually, in a battle against his rival Reed Richards, Doom lost these powers after admitting that Reed probably would have been able to do a better job at recreating the multiverse following the incursions, thereby causing Molecule Man to instead choose to bestow his power to Mr. Fantastic. Nanaue wasn't always known for being a demigod and prince. In the previous New Earth continuity, he is hinted at being the son of the king of all sharks, also known as the Shark God, although this was all kind of seen as a rumor in regards to his origin. Initially, it wasn't very concrete. He wouldn't become a god over time necessarily, but instead would have this origin more firmly established as being his true origin as time went on in the comics. In the Prime Earth continuity and the Harley Quinn animated series today, this is firmly cemented as King Shark's origins, making him a demigod. In fact, even in the newest Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League game, he's also a god. Like his father, Thane also has experience with wielding an insane amount of power. Initially though, Thane strove to simply be a healer in his everyday. He was eventually hunted down by Thanos, who was searching for his secret hidden son. Thane, being an Inhuman, didn't have powers yet when Ebony Maw first found him, but as a hybrid Inhuman and Eternal child, his powers were triggered and brought to the surface after undergoing Terrigenesis. This drastically changed his appearance and gave him an insta-kill power, where everyone within a certain, rather large radius of him would be killed simply by being near him, which is a pretty traumatizing thing to happen when you're like, I want to save people. Oh my gosh, my powers kill everyone. He could also encase people in amber. In fact, if you've heard of the story where Kitty Pryde helped Star-Lord save Spartax from the Brood after the entire planet was encased in amber, the person who had done the encasing, yeah, that was Thane. Thane would not only have insane power just from these abilities, but also would for a time have, get this, the Phoenix Force. Don't worry though, Thane would later lose the Phoenix Force after becoming trapped in the God Quarry, where he remains, or at least where he remains at the time of this recording, until I guess we remember him and pull him out of the God Quarry. There is a lot that Zod has done to sell himself as a god tier character. I feel like every time we see him, he is doing something even more extra than the last time. During the Prime Earth continuity, there is a point where Amanda Waller is lucky or unlucky enough perhaps to capture Zod to use him on her Task Force X, aka the Suicide Squad. However, even after having an explosive kryptonite device placed within his brain, Zod escapes Waller. Yeah. Does his own brain surgery, basically. Tormented by the pain of his family who are currently trapped inside the Phantom Zone, he manages to remove the bomb from his head by himself using his heat vision to break free and go rescue his family. After doing so, he also seeks out a planet for them to settle on to turn into a sort of new Krypton. The indigenous people of this planet are actually willing to work for Zod as they believe him and his family to be gods. Madeline Pryor was kind of born a god when you think about it. She is a clone of Jean Grey, whose life was sparked by a piece of the Phoenix Force. The Phoenix Force itself is like a cosmic god of sorts. It's not like, I don't know if we call it a god like officially, but it's godlike in power. And because a piece of that is built into Maddie, in a way, Maddie is also like a god. If you're wondering how or why I'm including her here when she, as I've said, has always been a god, since this is the exact reason I'm not including villains like Loki on this list, so for all of you who are wondering why Loki isn't here, that's why I didn't include him, it has to do with the fact that she wasn't always aware of her true origin. During the time she wasn't aware, Maddie simply acted like a normal human woman. However, after suffering a mental break, Maddie was transformed into a However, after suffering a mental break when she realized the truth of her origin, Maddie was transformed into a supremely powerful being, allowing her to tap into her true, unlimited potential. Poison Ivy is a character who honestly should always be at a god tier, just based on her power set honestly, but there's only really ever been one point that I can think of where she decided to take things to that kind of level. For the most part, Ivy stays pretty confined to Gotham, giving Batman and the city trouble with her eco-terror, but not really extending much beyond Gotham's reach. Now and then, I've seen her also go to some other cities, I've seen her go on a crime spree with Harley in Metropolis as well, but really she stays pretty confined to a single city with her mischief. However, in the Tom King story, Everyone Loves Ivy, trauma caused Ivy to strike out and go bigger, much bigger, taking over the whole world through vegetables. Yeah, she mind controlled people through the veggies that they ate, and she used her control over everyone to basically make the world a better place and bring about kind of world peace, but of course at the expense of free will. A big no-no in the hero books. Ivy, however, was convinced to relinquish control by Harley Quinn, who Batman and Catwoman basically recruited to help them deal with this situation, and ended up giving up her influence and her power at the end of the story as a result. Owen Reese was just a normal man before he received powers that made him a god, or at least put him on that level. He was a lab technician when one day, fixing an atomic device, he just poked a hole through the universe and into the multiverse, accidentally reaching across space and time into the universe of the Beyonders, and tapping into a massive amount of power there. This power would put him on an omnipotent and omniscient level, allowing him to rearrange the molecules of matter and even energy. He could even do that with organics, although for a long time there was a psionic barrier in place so that he wouldn't do that, because it's pretty messed up, even for a villain. Molecule Man can also warp reality on a massive galactic scale. It's really weird to think of this next villain as a god, but even he has earned that status before in the comics. I know, it's crazy. And strangely, it's actually happened more than once, sort of. The other version of the character who was imbued with god powers was from an alternate reality, admittedly, but even in the main continuity, Joker has gone god tier. In this case, it all went down when he managed to trick Superman fan and often mischievous antagonist, Mr. Mxyzptlk. Mr. Mxyz only intended to give Joker 0.01% of his power. but instead, he accidentally gave him 99.99%. Yeah, yikes. Needless to say, Joker most definitely did not use this power to do anything good. Eating China as though it were takeout, yeah, super weird and super scary, and tormenting Batman daily and killing him only to res him the next day so that he could do that all over again. It should surprise no one that of course there was a time when Thanos became an almost literal god. When and where was this? In an alternate future that ended up being erased, but where CGR, aka Cosmic Ghost Rider, still hails from, even though it doesn't exist. This was a future where Thanos had committed to winning over Death's Heart by destroying not just half of all life in the galaxy, but all life in the galaxy. He had eradicated life down to the point that only a few people remained, and eventually only he did. This King Thanos, who was a ruler of the universe, brought in his past self to eliminate him. However, this reality was erased when the younger Thanos refused to do his older self's bidding, and despite all his power, still saw King Thanos as being weak. Rude. Cersei went from being a very powerful witch to being a literal goddess. How did this happen? Well, in Justice League Dark, we learned of the Witch-Marked, powerful women who had pieces of Hecate's power hidden away within themselves. Diana Prince, aka Wonder Woman, is revealed to be one of these individuals as we discover, who they all are, or so we think, as it's later revealed that Cersei was also secretly one of Hecate's chosen Witch-Marked. She uses her attachment to Hecate to devise a plot to steal all the power from the other Witch-Marked and Hecate herself. Cersei actually succeeds in this surprisingly, and so gains a godly amount of power, putting her on the level of the goddess of magic, Hecate herself. In fact, because there is no Hecate after that, she basically is the new Hecate. Pretty crazy. Number 10, Loki. One person I am really still hoping to see in Love and Thunder is the god of mischief, Loki. I know main continuity Loki is dead in the MCU and gone, but there are still a ton of variants out there, including the new main alternate continuity variant from the Loki series. Heck, I'd even take a cameo from Kid Loki or Alligator Loki in this. Any of the Lokis, really. After all, Kid Loki does end up on the Young Avengers team, which is obviously slowly being introduced in the MCU, likely so they can eventually, join up and form the Young Avengers. Although he's not part of the original roster of that team, he is a prominent member later on. Boastful Loki or Classic Loki might be cool. Sylvie even might be an interesting one to have show up, as I think she'd really surprise Thor. Also, I wonder if, like in one of the comic book alternate universes where the two heroes are actually sisters in that universe, Sylvie's Thor was also maybe a female version of Thor. I'll even take Loki in flashback form if that's my only option. Just give me some more Loki, please.
At number 9 is Searcher. Although he's already appeared in Thor Ragnarok, I think this god needs to at least be referenced in the new movie once again if it's going to be consistent with the comics. Because Searcher, aka the Lord of Muspelheim, aka King of the Fire Giants, is an immortal being that truly never dies. He continues to make appearances throughout the Thor comics, and much of the time the conflicts seem to escalate to a point where Searcher is the be-all and end-all of basically all life in the cosmos. I mean, his sword is capable of destroying whole dimensions in one swing. So if this new movie needed perhaps a common enemy for both Gorr and Thor, or an overarching threat to the greater good of Asgard and beyond, Searcher would be the character to bring back to make that happen. I do think Gorr the God Butcher will be enough of a threat, but just in case they wanted to crank this sequel to 11, Searcher is there, and Clancy Brown is there to voice him again. I like Clancy Brown.
Number 8, Gaia. Gaia could be another interesting goddess to see in Thor 4, and I know that we said gods at this list, but goddesses, gods, we're covering all the genders in this, okay? In certain origin tales, Gaia is actually the mother of Thor, having been the mate of Odin in the guise of a woman named Jord. This is also why Thor is so attached to Midgard, as Gaia is the elder god of Earth, representing the planet and shaping it as she sees fit. In fact, I think she was even maybe responsible for the dinosaurs being gone. That was Gaia. Gaia was like, man will exist now. Ta-da! Gaia is also linked with Earth in an important way. She is a protector of the planet and also represents it, so if she were threatened, Earth would be threatened as well. Thor already had a mother in the MCU, Frigga or Frigg if you will, but even just threatening Gaia would put Gorr directly at odds with Thor, and would likely make Thor take the threat of Gorr very seriously, as harming Gaia could mean the destruction of Earth, which would also serve well to elevate the stakes, as Thor Odinson and Jane Foster Thor likely are going to have to team up to take on Gorr.
At number 7 is Ares. The God of War has come in and out of both Marvel and DC comic events, and although he is more commonly known as a character from ancient mythology, he has made enough appearances in the comics to appear in the MCU at this point, I would say at least. As we all know, Thor 2 is a character that was pulled from ancient mythology, so to reunite Thor with another Greek god at this point in his MCU run would just be a cool homage to his roots. And of course, Ares being the god of war and a villain by nature, this could open the door for some pretty even matchups for the other gods in the storyline. I think the presence of Gorr the God Butcher could give us a cool look into how nuanced Gorr's motivations are as well. Would he seek out Ares as one of his targets, or would he use him as a support system to first take down Thor and Odin? Hopefully if they included Ares, they would also throw in Hercules to even the playing field, or they could just not include either of them, which is probably what's actually going to happen, unfortunately. But I still hope, maybe see some Ares. At least not in this one, maybe the next one. We'll see.
Number 6. Khonshu. We now know Khonshu from the Disney Plus streaming series Moon Knight. We also know that the Egyptian gods exist. Wow. While a lot of them got messed up by Amit's and Arthur Harrow's attempt to basically rule the world, feeding on the souls of those destined to do ill, Khonshu survived that battle and is still out there. While Mark Spector and his other persona Stephen Grant believe they're actually free from Khonshu's influence, we learn that Khonshu still seems to have a hold over their shared physical form at the end of the series, with the reveal of Jake Lockley, limo driver / assassin, the third persona residing within Mark. So it's possible that Khonshu could become the target of Gorr in Love and Thunder. In fact, many people expect that Moon Knight and Thor 4 could be more connected than they seem, due to the Egyptian pantheon being a big part of that series.
At number 5, I'm putting Serpent, or Kull Borson. Introduced during the Fear Itself storyline, Kull Borson is Odin's brother and Thor's uncle naturally, but he's more commonly known as the Norse god of fear. When he's freed from an underwater prison by Red Skull's daughter Sin, he makes it his work to turn many well-known Marvel superhumans into evil henchmen. This would include Juggernaut, Absorbing Man, and the Hulk, just to name a few. And his influence as a Thor villain is so extensive that I think we should expect to see him in the MCU at some point, whether it's the new sequel or not. Serpent would be a perfect addition to the MCU since he's both an extremely powerful and overwhelming force against Thor and his allies, but also, and more importantly, because he's part of Thor's family. So the character would offer great opportunities for both drama as well as epic action sequences, and maybe even a crossover with these henchmen listed before. He also turns into a giant snake, which would just be pretty badass visual for the VFX team.
Number 4. One Above All. The One Above All could be a super cool god to see in Thor, Love and Thunder, and just in general. For those unfamiliar, the One Above All is literally the god of the Marvel Universe, often presented as being one of the supreme and ultimate good gods with the most power within the Marvel multiverse and beyond. The One Above All is often depicted as resembling Jack Kirby or Stan Lee, a couple of the main founding fathers over at Marvel Comics. RIP. Considering that Stan Lee could now be digitally recreated and Disney has rights to use his likeness, this might be a cool or perhaps a disturbing one to have, depending on how it's done. That is, if we want this god to look like either Stan Lee or Jack Kirby, but yeah. Granted, I wouldn't want Gorr killing the One Above All, but I also don't think he'd be able to do that unless we really want to see him as being like crazy OP. I don't even know what would happen if you did that. It might be cool just to have some nod to the existence of this major godly presence within the MCU. Although when it comes to Stan Lee continuing to potentially do cameos in the MCU past his, his physical demise, let me know how you feel about that possibility in the comments. It hasn't been announced, but we know that Disney does have the rights to use his likeness from the Stan Lee universe, who actually own that, and I certainly have some complex feelings about this whole thing in general.
At number 3 is the Midgard Serpent, or Jormungand. For those of you who don't already know, this is a different serpent than the one mentioned previously. This one doesn't have a human form. It's an immortal, snake-like beast that is known as the son of Loki and sorceress Angerboda. This creature is a recurring opponent to Thor, and his influence is immense. He's one of those bad guys that never actually gets killed, with the gods only being able to banish or imprison him. He's so powerful that just by moving around, he causes earthquakes and tidal waves on Earth, and he also has the ability to create complex illusions that are capable of deceiving even the most powerful of beings. He also typically appears in his ethereal form, during which he is basically invisible to his opponents. Even in his final battle with Thor in the comics, he doesn't fully appear in corporeal form, with some of his body still in a spiritual plane of existence. Jormungand is also a god killer, with his venom being lethal to any and all gods if he lands an attack just right. So if he did appear in the new movie, perhaps Gore would be able to use the creature to his advantage, before ultimately needing to turn on the serpent himself. That is, if he were consistent with his grudge towards gods. We'll see.
Number 2, Hercules. I mean, I'm still waiting for Hercules to make an appearance in any of the trailers we get, but as this movie is quickly approaching, I think this might be a cameo that is actually kept as a surprise. Oh my goodness, something that's a surprise in a Marvel movie. So rare. Or Hercules might not appear in the Greek pantheon as well, because I think they're all gonna die. Obviously we don't want that for Hercules, who is not only a powerful and mighty hero, but is also a fairly good friend to the X-Men as well later on, and the Avengers, taking the younger X-students in at Avengers Academy at the behest of Captain America during the events of Avengers vs. X-Men, back when Hercules was actually filling in as faculty there. Hercules is actually a really popular hero in Marvel canon, at least among other supers. In addition to being a friend of the X-Men, he's been a member of the Guardians of the Galaxy, Avengers, S.H.I.E.L.D., Defenders, and of course, the God Squad. I'm really hoping we see the God Squad in this. Also, in the alternate reality of Earth 12025, Hercules is actually the romantic partner of James Howlett, aka alternate Wolverine.
Finally, at number 1 is King Phoenix, God of Fire. As much as I doubt this character is actually going to appear in Thor Love and Thunder, a guy can dream. And the only reason why I say this is that I see no signs that this story is going to jump into the other reality in which old King Thor lives and exists. And even if they did, I don't imagine that they'd make an attempt to introduce the Phoenix Force into the mix, considering how busy the movie already seems to be. Because if you're unaware of who this character is, or if you missed my Thor variants list previously on the channel, King Phoenix, God of Fire is a mixture of both old King Thor and the Phoenix Force. And the result is a supercharged, overpowered variation of Thor that I can imagine would make easy work of some of Thor's otherwise unbeatable enemies. Now, although I don't suspect anything like this could happen in the new movie dropping in July, I think it's inevitable that we'll at least see old King Thor at some point in a future MCU project. Or maybe in the after credits scene or something like that. But I may be wrong, so if you have a hunch that this new movie could include the older version of Thor, please let me know in the comments, because this has got to be my favorite of Thor's variants. And I just think it would be really great to see a mature, aged version of Thor with years of wisdom under his belt. And then adding Phoenix Force would just be the cherry on top, but I'd settle for old King Thor as well.
Number 10, Win. aka Sir Redwyn, Lord of the Highlands, Root of the World Tree, Salt of the Earth. When it comes to his alignment, we don't really know where he falls yet. He claims he's been alive for so long that it gets hard to discern between good and evil. Ain't that the way, Win? Ain't that the way? I mean, I'm not a millennia old or anything like that, clearly, but every year that I'm alive on this spinning rock, I definitely feel that to be more and more true. Win made his first appearance in the 2023 Free Comic Book Day issue of Avengers and X-Men, where the Gods story and comic was first teased. He kinda looks like Doctor Strange, but Win actually has his own thing going on, so don't mix them up. Or do mix them up, but just try to respect and remember that they are different characters, yeah? Now that I told you. Win is the avatar of the powers that be, which is a mystical entity that seems to be the opposite of another known as the natural order of things, an entity that is instead representative of all things scientific. Number 9, Dimitri the Science Boy. Dimitri is a pretty interesting member of the Gods group. While he works for the natural order of things as a proxy, he is also known to work for Win as well, so he helps to bridge the gap between the two opposing sides. While the powers that be and the natural order of things oppose one another, they also both agreed to sort of balance one another out by making sure that each of their servants has ties to the other side. Dimitri, as such, is the chained apprentice to Win, who is the singular avatar to the powers that be. As such, Dimitri Dimitri first popped up alongside Wynn in the 2023 issue of the X-Men Hellfire Gala. And when we first see him in Gods issue number 1, it is also alongside Wynn, who he brings to a party hosted by other seemingly ancient beings in disguise, where a demon has accidentally been set loose. They gotta deal with that. Number 8, the powers that be. The powers that be is a mysterious entity that has only been referred to in a few different issues of comics as of yet. They are supposedly an immensely powerful entity and god representing everything weird and magical in the world. We haven't seen them yet, but we do know of Wynn, who is their representative, and who I imagine is supposed to be kind of like our dream of this scenario because Jonathan Hickman wants this to basically be like Marvel's Sandman. Wynn is their one and only soul avatar, which is why I feel like they are more mysterious even really than the natural order of things, who has more representatives and whom Aiko has spoken more on in terms of the Centrum and how that all works. We also know that while Wynn is their one and only avatar, and while he has served the powers that be for a long time, having lived over 1,000 years, he does not feel so secure in his position to see himself as indisposable to his own god. Number 7, 97. Also known as Aiko Maki, 97 is the wife to Wynn. They fell in love without really knowing who the other was, and after 5 years of blissful marriage, it was revealed that Wynn was actually the avatar for the opposing faction, the powers that be. The opposing faction to hers that she would end up serving, known as the Natural Order of Things, as she would become one of their 100 Centum. Every member of the Centum is given a number, which also somewhat denotes their rank and their importance. While you'd think the number 97 would mean that Aiko isn't that high up, it's actually the opposite to what most people would assume, with sometimes higher numbers implying a higher rank. Now, prime numbers specifically though, so any prime numbers in there, of which there's only a few, are considered to be like the most high in rank. When she was elevated, she was also made one of the Natural Order of Things immortal scientists. Like many of the other new immortals who are part of the Gods group and series, Aiko also popped up prior to their series launch, first appearing in the 2023 series of Uncanny Avengers, known as Volume 4 in issue number 1. Number 6, Dr. St. Mur's Circle. St. Mur's Circle is also a member of the Centum, and one of the Centivars selected by the Natural Order of Things, where he is known as Number 2. As 2, or the second Centivar, he would also likely have an important spot in the Centum, as he is the first prime number in the lot. This would imply to me that he is one of the greatest and most senior of the members of the Centum. He makes his first appearance in Gods issue number 1. Number 5, the Natural Order of Things. The Natural Order of Things has only been mentioned in one issue thus far of the comics in Gods issue number 1, but I will say I feel like we have a better idea as to how that god at least seems to work. This is because they have more representatives and systems in terms of how their servants work together. The Natural Order of Things has 100 representatives known as the Centum. As the greatest prime number within 100, Aiko is ranked as one of the highest of the Centum. There also seems to be different groups who are also responsible for different things, and when Aiko goes to meet with Wynn and tells him they need to separate, she implies that the theorists of their order had predicted Wynn's response and also estimated an 84% chance that their gods and factions would return to war with one another unless certain things were to happen. At the same time, I do feel like it's possible both Aiko and Wynn were being manipulated and that their marriage could have created peace actually between these two groups, which is why their gods, who of course hate one another, would be against that happening to, maintain the feud. So I'm not sure if I believe the reasoning there, but that's what we're going with so far. Number 4, Mia the Magic Girl. So here's the thing. We really don't know that much about Mia the Magic Girl from Gods. We don't even know if she'll be one of the main people in Gods or what's happening with her yet, but I have a sneaking suspicion that there will be more to her than meets the eye. Speaking of meeting, at the time of this recording, we haven't met her yet. This is also why you likely haven't heard of this Gods character. She is set to make her first debut in Gods issue number 2, which comes out on November 8th of 2023, so long as schedules stay as they are for this comic. What we do know about her is that she is a seemingly normal girl who happens to stumble into something bigger than her with the eternal feud that has existed between the powers that be and the Natural Order of Things. She herself is a sorceress, so she would appeal, you'd think, to the powers that be and their side. But at the same time, for some as of yet unknown reason, the Natural Order of Things has also taken a specific interest in her. It's also interesting that her character design has her in a red coat, which means she somewhat bears a design resemblance. Thank you. It's also interesting that her character design with her red coat would mean that she somewhat bears a design resemblance to Wynn, the avatar of the powers that be. Number 3, Cubist Core. Cubist Core at this point in the series is maybe even more mysterious than Mia, despite having at least already made his first appearance in Gods issue number 1. Well, what do we know about Cubist? We know that he is a proto-mage who people thought was dead for a long time, but he's definitely not. And we know that he's out to destroy possibly all of existence. He stole the staff of the Living Tribunal, which honestly sounds pretty impressive, I don't even know how you would do that, and attempted to use it to start a cataclysmic Babylon event. It's unknown just exactly which god Cubist serves at this point. Definitely one of the biggest mystery villains we have yet to meet in this first issue as well, so pretty impressive. Number 2, the Living Tribunal. The Living Tribunal has probably made the most comic book appearances of all those that are mentioned on this list, but they're still not someone most casual superhero and Marvel fans would be familiar with. Trey, have you ever heard of the Living Tribunal?
No.
Alright, see, there we got one. And they are actually relevant to this story of the new characters I'll mainly be covering on the list. I was actually hoping that the Living Tribunal would make an appearance in the MCU in She-Hulk, but instead we got Kevin, which, while delightfully odd and meta, perfectly suiting, I thought, She-Hulk, was not exactly what I was hoping for as a comics fan. In fact, I think perhaps the only reference to the Living Tribunal I can recall in the MCU is the staff of the Living Tribunal, which has appeared there, which Baron Mordo at one point wields. The Living Tribunal is one of the most powerful gods in all of existence in the Marvel multiverse, who represents all of multiversal law and justice, the direct representative for the one above all. However, they ended up being slain, and so an alternate reality version of Adam Warlock was chosen by the one above all to take their place. So now that is who the Living Tribunal is. Number 1, the unrevealed god. Well, some might think that the god that Cubist Core serves is nothing more than your everyday, typical elder god, possibly one of the many angled ones, who has twisted Cubist's mind into thinking he serves the one true god when obviously he doesn't. I'd wager there is more going on here than we can surmise at this point. In issue number 1 of Gods, the god Cubist Core serves is not revealed and seems to be an atypical, like I said, elder god, but this is a world and story crafted by Jonathan Hickman, who tends to bring everything that happens later in his story back to issue 1 in ways we often as the readers don't expect and definitely don't see when we first read it. I imagine there might be more going on here with who Cubist Core actually serves, even if at the end of the day he's just an upstart mage apparently from Georgia. It also might have to do with that alternate reality originating John Wilkes Booth penny that Wynn finds, which sent him on his journey to save the day in that first issue. Number 10, Explorer. Explorer is one of the elders of the universe, some of the oldest living beings and entities to have ever existed. Among them are some names that you may recognize, although you may have not known them to be elders of the universe, such as the Collector and Grandmaster. Explorer is believed to be one of the oldest beings belonging to the elders, and considers the other members of the team to be like his siblings. He is probably one of the most lesser known of the elders of the universe despite his immortality, and also one of the most mysterious. If he has a power set, we don't really know what it is, but like the other elders, as time goes on, the longer you survive, it seems the more powerful you become, whether or not you have superpowers. Wisdom and time strengthen you. Explorer has only appeared in a few issues of the comics, which is why he's likely so often forgotten in comparison to other members of the Elders of the Universe. Number 9, Origin. Origin is a super cool idea for a character. I love how many cool abstract entities we have like this in the Marvel Universe and the multiverse. Origin represents all the origins we have within the Marvel Universe of 616, seen as a being therefore of fate. Origin is believed to have been the one responsible for summoning the forces and events needed to come together in order to have granted and ordained mutants abilities from the moment of their conception and growth in the womb, created groups like Fantastic Four, and brought Thor and the Asgardians to Earth. Basically, if something in 616 has an origin, Origin probably played a role in that. They are constantly in battle with an entity known as the Unbeing, who has sought to undo what they have brought to pass. Origin first appeared in Quasar in issue number 18. What a neat and, of course, powerful concept. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list and you want more lists like it where we talk about some of the lesser known cosmic entities and gods of the Marvel Universe, be sure to let us know by giving this video a thumbs up. Number 8. Black Winter. Black Winter is an entity that feels weird to me to have so low on this list, but at the same time, despite being a multiversal godlike cosmic being, they did recently get their metaphorical butt whooped by Thor in the comics. However, that's likely not the end of this cosmic entity, despite them appearing to have died there. There was a lot of foreshadowing that they brought with them when they appeared in the first story arc of Donny Cates' current 2020 Thor series. The Black Winter was formerly known as the Creeping Plague in the comics when they first appeared, but over many years revealed themselves more fully in the comics, being known by the name of Black Winter, as they generate a dark eldritch snowfall which can destroy anything that its flakes come into contact with. Pretty fitting name, I think. Pretty powerful entity. But still, no match for power cosmic amped up Thor, who drained Galactus of all his power, seemingly killing him in order to destroy this threat. Yeah, Thor OP. If Thor was someone that we didn't know about, he would be a great person for this list. But as I said, we all know Thor, right? Who doesn't know Thor? If you don't know Thor, I don't know, you don't know Marvel at this point. That's something you gotta know. Number 7. Witchcraft. Witchcraft is the goddess of witchcraft. As far as I know, she's only ever really appeared in the Scarlet Witch series, showing up there once. The goddess of witchcraft is, as she sounds she would be, the goddess of all magic and pretty much all magic users. Scarlet Witch sensed that something was wrong with magic and the goddess, and realized that witchcraft was basically being targeted by another abstract entity and god, Chaos. Chaos sought to destroy witchcraft and pretty much succeeded in the end, but Wanda's mother, Natalia Maximoff, also a powerful witch, sacrificed her own soul to bring back the goddess of witchcraft and to resurrect the powerful witch and Wanda's mentor, Agatha Harkness. Witchcraft is so cool, both the goddess and just like the whole world of it within Marvel. Such a cool idea. I need to go read more Scarlet Witch now. Excuse me. Number 6. Chthon. Chthon is the god of chaos, known for their attachment to the Scarlet Witch, aka Avenger Wanda Maximoff. Her powers of chaos have been tied to this god in the past, and at times, because of their ties, Chthon has even tried to break through into the earthly plane through her by attempting to possess her. Well, succeeding in possessing her and then basically having to be like defeated is more what happened. Chthon actually belongs to a group of earthen gods known as the Elder Gods. Why does that sound so spookily familiar? The Elder Gods? Chthon is actually believed to be the most powerful of all the Elder Gods actually. He has connections to dark magic and chaos magic and is not just a powerful god, but also an immensely powerful mystical force besides. Basically, just bad news. If Chthon shows up to the party, get out of there, it's gonna be chaos all over the place. Number 5. Volknar the Exhumer. Thanks to Eternals and Guardians of the Galaxy from the MCU, the Celestials have become a more common Marvel god group, something that you can throw around at a party with a bunch of people that, you know, haven't read all the comics and they'll be like, I know who the Celestials are. Sweet. The Celestials are the one who created the Eternals and, in essence, in the MCU, use them to birth new Celestials. Celestials are creators of life, but tragically, worlds kinda have to be sacrificed in the MCU in order to create Celestials and incubate them. Earth was at one point one of the worlds threatened by the birth of a new Celestial, but in the MCU, the Eternals banded together to prevent Earth's destruction, managing to turn the waking Celestial into marble before it could basically rise up. However, in the comics, the dark truth the Eternals learn is that in reality, the Celestials actually plan to cultivate and then harvest humanity and Earth to use in their battle against the corrupted Dark Celestials and the Horde, which threatened both the Celestials and basically the universe. Where the Celestials are inherently seen as neutral or sometimes a good force, the Dark Celestials are pure evil and really only seek to awaken the Horde and to just destroy stuff. Volknar the Exhumer was no exception and was a member of the final host of the Dark Celestials. Volknar, with the others of his group, attempted to attack and destroy Earth, but Iron Man banded together with the Avengers after learning the secrets of the Unimind, because at that point the Eternals were gone. Creating a Unimind and banding together with the Celestials, Earth was able to fight back and defeat Volknar and their brethren. Bye, Dark Celestials. Except not really, because, you know, can't. Celestials are hard to destroy, but you can stop them if you try really hard and you believe, and you create a uni-mind. Number 4, Eternity. When it comes to the main comic book continuity of Earth 616, basically, that's what Eternity is. Well, Eternity and his sister Infinity, kind of. Together, they embody the 616 universe. Eternity is also an abstract entity that represents time as well, making them pretty epically powerful. There are some that usurp them when it comes to their power levels, but those beings would usually be more on a multiversal level, on a whole other level of just powerful, because there's the universe and then there's the multiverse, baby. Eternity has been stated to be above all other abstract entities in the 616 universe, including Mistress Death, Master Order, and Lord Chaos. Within the realm of 616, there is almost no power too great for them to possess as the embodiment of that universe. They can easily manipulate it and bend it to their will as they see fit. Because I mean, they are it, so yeah. Number 3, the Living Tribunal. The Living Tribunal basically represents the justice of the multiverse. They are one of the most powerful beings and entities in the entire multiverse, though obviously aren't at the top of the food chain when it comes to our most powerful but lesser known gods of the Marvel Universe and multiverse. The Living Tribunal only has one form, but is in essence a constant and can exist across multiple realities at the same time. However, any alternates seen in this way are really just one entity, therefore not alternates, because the Living Tribunal is able to be at multiple places at once. As I said, they can exist. There can be multiple versions, but it's really just one. You know what I mean? It's an OP trait. I would love to be able to do that, to just have me and be as I am, but then have multiple versions of me across realities. Think of how much work I could get done. The Living Tribunal in essence represents the Marvel multiverse and exists to uphold its integrity and stability, working as the force of justice within the multiverse. The Living Tribunal also has power levels that are off the charts, and at one point a version of Adam Warlock took the place of this powerful entity after the Living Tribunal died, becoming the new Living Tribunal. Adam Warlock, Living Tribunal, here to do the job. There are lots of Adam Warlocks across the multiverse. Number 2, the One Below All. I mean, it's really hard to say between these top 2 points who's really the more powerful between them, because they're kind of like different sides of the same coin. But this is what I decided to go with. If you disagree, you can let me know in the comments. I'm cool with that. We can have a debate. It'll be fun. I'm definitely giving away my number 1 spot, by the way, if you are deep in the god mythos of Marvel. But if you are, good for you. And also, thanks for still watching this video just to see what little old me thinks about these gods and their rankings. I think you're neat. The One Below All is basically the real Satan or devil of the Marvel Universe. I know that Mephisto, Azazel, and Damon Hellstrom's father have all kind of claimed to be like the one and only devil, but really that title most truly belongs to the One Below All. They are the dark side of the multiverse's creator, and as such are also an all-powerful, omnipotent, omniscient, multiversal entity and being. Although where the other half is more broad when it comes to, their focus, the One Below All is pretty niche. They basically rule over gamma mutates, being the source of mutagenic gamma energy, which is still super cool. It's just that's kind of more their focus. They can possess and overtake gamma-powered or mutated individuals and bend them to their will, making them not just powerful, but also a pretty scary entity overall. And if you want to learn more about that, you can check it out in Immortal Hulk, which if you haven't read it, you should read it because it's the best thing since sliced bread. Number 1, the One Above All. The One Above All is so powerful they don't even have their own designated universe. Instead, they exist in all of the universes, being a multiversal entity and constant. And yes, if you haven't already guessed, they are the other side of the coin when it comes to the One Below All. In essence, the One Above All is like the god of the Marvel comic book multiverse. They are the creator of all things, and despite the existence of many other gods and immortal constants, both good and bad, they exist pretty much above them all. The one true power of the multiverse. They are seen to be an omnipotent and omniscient being who can do all and see all. It is believed that everything that exists in the multiverse was in fact ultimately created by them. Out of respect for the 2 major creative forces that started it all, the One Above All has at times appeared to resemble both Jack Kirby and Stan Lee, often considered Marvel's founding fathers, which I think is also super sweet and appropriate. Who would the One Below All though be? who's like the Satan of Marvel.
Barbados, or Barbatos. From the DC universe, Barbatos, aka the Hyper-Adapter, is a bat-like cosmic being that often appears in the form of a bat-like demon that can traverse time and space freely. But in the new 52, the character is reimagined as the god of the dark multiverse and the first incarnation of Batman. Yes, you heard it right, this super evil demon god is actually known to have taken the form of a bat in Wayne Manor, which Bruce takes as a sign from his late father to commit to the Batman mantle. I don't know why he does this though, because Batman then commits his whole life to fending off evil forces. It's sort of a trade-off, because although Batman goes on to become, well, Batman, Barbatos ends up using the hero as a portal to the multiverse, and starts work on assembling his own roster of evil Batmen, called the Dark Knights. This would include Batman Who Laughs, among others.
Number 9. Parallax. Parallax isn't technically or officially a god, but they are one of the manifestations of the emotions of the color spectrum, an avatar and physical manifestation of fear, what the color yellow represents and embodies, at least over at DC Comics. And they are also a cosmic entity who is super ancient and powerful, so I think in regards to Green Lantern lore and importance, we can put them on god level. Parallax was the one responsible for taking over Green Lantern Hal Jordan, feeding on his own fear and insecurities over the years. In fact, the graying of his hair at his temples was later pointed out as an indicator of Parallax's growing strength. Fun fact. At least that's how some people saw it. Could also just be Hal getting older, really. Parallax took over Hal, becoming one with him, and causing Jordan to give up his Green Lantern mantle, and be known simply as Parallax. As Parallax, Hal Jordan threatened the entire universe and destroyed the Green Lantern Corps, and their major battery, which is pretty villainous and powerful stuff.
Null, the original creator of the symbiotes and Eldritch god of darkness. Null is a very powerful and very old villain. He is first awakened when Celestials invade his kingdom, and he decides it is time to create his first symbiote. His first creation comes in the form of a sword, which he uses to decapitate a Celestial. This is his first big demonstration of power, and it's quite something. He then decides to branch out and expand his venture of creating symbiotes to take over all of the good in the cosmos. And he does this by creating what's known as a hive mind center with himself as the nexus, meaning he'll have control over any and all symbiotes that are controlled through the hive. His army then really starts coming together with draconic monsters, anamorphic creatures, and shadow men, all under his control and dedicated to satiating his evil hunger for life. Luckily though, Null eventually finds himself disintegrated in the center of the sun. But that's a huge fast forward I did there. This villain god does some serious damage to the greater good of life in the cosmos before he's finally taken out.
Number 7. Khonshu. Khonshu is an inherently an evil god when it comes to actual Egyptian mythology, just to be clear. And even in the world of Marvel, he's actually done a lot of good. But he's also done some pretty shady things. Especially recently, he's done some pretty shady things. During the Age of Khonshu event in the Avengers series, Khonshu actually used his avatar Moon Knight, aka Mark Spector, known as the Fist of Khonshu, to help him defeat Mephisto. Now while this sounds like a good thing, since when it comes to Marvel's gods, Mephisto being like Marvel's devil or Satan is kinda one of the worst of the worst, it turned out to not be so good after it was revealed that Khonshu planned on taking over the earth and turning it into his own Egyptian underworld. This revelation caused Moon Knight to turn on his god, and as Khonshu often likes to remind us, his father, teaming up with the Avengers to take him down. Following this, Khonshu would actually become imprisoned in the dungeons of Asgard, and while he can still visit Moon Knight via visions, he can no longer be physically present on Earth while imprisoned.
Mephisto. This guy is known as an extra-dimensional demon who takes on the likeness of a traditional devil from the Christian religion, and he resides in a place he calls Hell, or Hades, but he isn't actually Satan, and his homeworld isn't actually Hell as we know it. He uses these terms in an effort to exploit the constructs of fear and evil that humans have instilled into our culture. Although he does have ties to the original story of Adam and Eve in the form of the snake in that tale, so I don't know, seems kinda Satan-y to me. But his origins are widely understood to be unknown, and one of the only theories comes from the story of Nemesis. This being was born at the beginning of time and tried to create other beings in the likeness of his own immense power, but accidentally created a bunch of demons. And as you guessed it, Mephisto is one of these demons. Nemesis then ends his own life and becomes the Infinity Stones. That's just a side bit of lore for you, in case you didn't know. But thank God the Infinity Stones are banned for demons, because if Mephisto got his hands on those, it'd be all over.
Number 5, Perpetua. I kind of feel bad actually that Perpetua is only like halfway up this list, but that's alright. She had her time in the sun. It has come to a close. Perpetua has to be one of the most powerful godlike beings in all of DC Comics. She basically sought to take over and destroy all of the multiverse so that she might rebuild it in her own image, but was stopped by her children and trapped in the Source Wall. By the way, one of her children is also on this list. See if you can figure out who it is. Later on, she teamed up with the Batman Who Laughs to get free, but ended up being double-crossed by him, tricked out of her own reality-shattering power. Still, the power was originally hers, and she was trapped in the Source Wall because there was nowhere else strong enough to hold her originally. Perpetua's only downside as a being who can bend reality and even life and death to her whim is that she relies on crisis energy to fuel her immense power, which is how the Batman Who Laughs was able to steal her power from her. He was like, I'm gonna take that crisis energy. Gulp. Yum.
Chthon is one of the original Elder Gods that inhabited Earth billions of years ago. Over time, Chthon becomes the first black magician on Earth after studying the mystical forces of the universe. Unfortunately, about 1 billion years ago, these Elder Gods that Chthon was a part of degenerate and start turning into demons, Chthon included. Luckily, one of them, Gaia, avoids this transformation and keeps her pure form, giving birth to Adam, who makes it their duty to slay these demons. But Chthon avoids the God Eater and escapes by creating another dimension known as the Flickering Realms. Chthon's writings are left on Earth in the form of scrolls, which are eventually bound together into the Darkhold. So his influence continuously finds its way back to Earth despite his banishment to this new dimension. He even possesses Modred and eventually Scarlet Witch for a time to keep pushing his evil magic agenda on his original home of Earth.
Number 3, Darkseid. Another guy that doesn't know how to chill. Even though Perpetua can literally bend reality to her whim, Darkseid is constantly in the DC universe, which means he basically has to always exist. You can't ever really defeat him because Darkseid is. What is Darkseid? No, he just is. Every time I say this in a video, I'm like, it sounds so confusing, and I feel like anyways, I'm gonna explain it to you right now. Darkseid is a short phrase that implies that Darkseid will always exist. This also extends to the idea of what Darkseid represents. The phrase was actually introduced by Grant Morrison, and to me it has always embodied the idea that Darkseid is more than just the being. He's the feeling, the fear, the destruction, and in some cases, the oppression that Darkseid represents. Even without Darkseid, those things still exist, and so in a way he can never really be gone. But also you can interpret this phrase more literally, as after all, Perpetua may have been a powerhouse, but she's gone now, while Darkseid still is.
Anti-Monitor. We all know this guy. He's a real thorn in the side of everything good in the universe. He's also another one of those characters that finds his origins at the very dawn of time. Okay, so he's not around since day one, but almost. He's first created as the result of a conflict on the ancient planet of Oa, during which the inhabitants fight it out over the decision of whether to destroy all of the evil in the universe or only some of it. It's crazy how petty wars can be, eh? Even in the ancient cosmos. Anyway, the bad guys go to a dimension called Cord, where Anti-Monitor is birthed. In the Positive Matter universe, the Monitor is also created, the counterpart to Anti-Monitor as you can tell, and you best believe those two end up fighting. But it's no normal war. They battle it out for 1 million years, and I'll save you a million years and skip to the end, it ends in a tie. They both go unconscious and hibernate for 9 billion more years. Of course, this is just the beginning. Anti-Monitor comes in and out of pretty much every DC character's story at one point or another as a major threat, and I'm sure you can guess why.
Number 1, the one below all. Probably one of the most powerful of all gods in the Marvel Universe. Definitely the most powerful god, I would say, on this list. The one below all is the dark counterpart to the one above all, which is seen as the creator of all the Marvel Universe and multiverse besides, one of the most powerful beings of goodness in the whole of Marvel Comics. Likewise, the one below all is therefore one of the most powerful beings of evil. They are typically connected to gamma mutates, and can control and manipulate those who have been mutated by gamma radiation. The crazy thing is that without the one below all, we actually can't have the one above, and vice versa. One cannot exist without the other, and so with them both comes a whole lot of bad and a whole lot of good.
Number 10. Iron Man. After Iron Man is imbued with the power cosmic, he becomes the Iron God, and one of the first things he does is do battle with Korvac, who is also similarly cosmically powered. From the get-go, we know Iron Man is beyond powerful, since him and Korvac are tossing moons and planets at one another during their fight. That is, until the cosmic entities show up and stop the fight, take Korvac away, and let Tony go off to see what he does with all this power. Iron God's goal is to make the world into a paradise, to fix all of its problems. Tony can use his cosmic powers to do whatever he wants, and since all of his ideas for helping the world were trapped in his mind, he decides to share his intellect and ideas with the entire population of New York, making Mr. Fantastic more dumb in the process. It doesn't do a heck of a lot except stop a couple's argument, get a kid at a baseball game to talk about background radiation, and get the villain Big Wheel to decide to solve traffic issues using quantum mechanics. But Tony's brash way of thinking led some other heroes to turn on him. Number 9. Green Lantern. Kyle Rayner. One of the most powerful Green Lanterns. With the power of Ion, he's resurrected the Guardians of the Universe. But what do you know, he became even more powerful. During the New 52, blue, red, yellow, indigo, and violet rings show up and claim him as their user, with the orange ring eventually doing the same, making him the only individual who has ever harnessed every ring of the emotional spectrum. After a while of struggling to balance this power, he does eventually gain mastery over every ring and becomes the White Lantern. Green gives him the ability to make hard-like constructs, only limited by his comic book artist imagination. The yellow ring allows him to sense the fears of his opponents. He can use the caustic red plasma of the Red Lanterns, he can teleport like the Indigo Tribe, and cause others to experience love, which is the Star Sapphire power. The blue ring allows him to instill hope in others, and the final orange ring allows him to create members of his Lantern Corps out of hard light. He can heal injuries, phase through objects, be invisible, create force fields, super speed flight, and energy blasts. He also gains the ability to rewrite reality and becomes omnipotent when he travels beyond the source wall. Number 8. Hercules. Hercules is an incredibly powerful Olympian who is on par with, if not stronger than, Thor. But one of his most powerful moments was during the events of Chaos War when the Chaos King attacked. Amadeus Cho uses ancient artifacts to become a god, but since he is a mere mortal, he can't handle it and transfers the powers to Hercules instead, making Hercules like a double god. But with this power, Hercules is able to fly, teleport, and release energy from his hands and eyes. His strength was amped up to ridiculous levels, and he was even able to win a confrontation with the Council of Godheads. He could summon Galactus and Eternity to him against their will, and defeated Zeus, who just beat up Galactus. He could give others powers too, giving all the heroes the power of flight. He could grow to the size of a planet to fight the Chaos King with his fists, eventually defeating him, and to close out the story, Hercules used his power to undo all of the crazy stuff that the Chaos King did, and then he became mortal again. Number 7. Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman definitely toes the line between God and not God. She is empowered by the gods and communicates and even does battle with them on the regs, even becoming the god of war at one point recently. But she has been elevated beyond even that level of power. When Diana was empowered with the World Forge and the anti-crisis energy at the end of Doom War / during Death Metal, she had enough power to shake stars and phase throughout time through sheer strength. She had displayed the ability to shrink an entire planet and was able to link everyone together and restore their memories as one history, as in all of DC's continuity, making it really confusing. She has cosmic awareness, she's able to see multiple events during the war against the Batman Who Laughs at once, as well as precognition and retrocognition. She was a crazy powerful character for that time. Number 6. Batman. Batman's godlike abilities came fittingly in the form of him becoming the god of knowledge. Bruce has obviously always used his cunning to even the odds between him and far more powerful foes, like Darkseid as an example. So his mind really is his best weapon, and in this form it was likely one of the most deadly weapons in the universe. Metron, the god of knowledge, has his position usurped by Batman when he is pulled off of the Mobius chair by Wonder Woman. Now Bruce takes the title for himself by waltzing up and sitting his cape buttocks upon the Mobius chair, granting him with the answer to any question that interests him, plus teleportation and basically omniscience. His first question is to validate that it really was Joe Chill who killed his parents. 'Twas, and he torments him. And his second question was about the true identity of the Joker, which led us to the insane realization that there are actually 3 Jokers. Number 5. Beta Ray Bill. If you don't know who Beta Ray Bill is, you need to check yourself before you wreck yourself, yo. He did not just happen to pick up the hammer of Thor, Mjolnir, being the first person canonically to do so, but he even beat up Thor in a mano-a-mano combat to claim ownership of said hammer. Despite his utterly monstrous appearance, Bill was actually a pretty swell guy, and quite the friendly hero, definitely worthy of the title of a god. He was so kind that even after beating Thor a second time to decide who would keep the hammer, he gave it up and let the young god keep his weapon. Odin was so impressed by this display of humility and honor that he had a hammer especially made for Bill that had the same properties as Mjolnir, granting him the ability to become a god of thunder just like Thor, but more horse-like. Number 4. The Flash. The Flash became something that no mortal can outrun: death. Well, actually I should say, Barry became bonded with the Black Racer and basically killed Darkseid, and then he basically became the god of death. But Barry doesn't really want that kind of life, so he tries to outrace death and all the things that death affects. Now death shows Barry a vision of his mother's demise and basically explains that that kind of thing is a part of life, that the deaths of others, even those we love, shape who we become. But Barry still resists somewhat when he's ordered to reap Iris West, and Barry tries to fight the Black Racer. Now the only problem is that Barry soon realizes that without a Black Racer, every single person on Earth will pass away. There needs to be a Black Racer to keep things like that in check, and he accepts his new role as the god of death. Number 3. Shazam. Shazam was already imbued with the power of various gods, placing him well above the ability of any other mortal. But after the death of Darkseid, he didn't just become a deity of any single attribute. He was the deity of deities when he was given the title the God of Gods. The mythos of Shazam has always been that his name is made up of the first letter of the 6 gods who fuel his abilities. So that's Solomon, Hercules, Atlas, Zeus, Achilles, and Mercury. As Shazam takes on his new title as God of Gods, 6 new gods, whose initials conveniently spell out his name still, give Shazam new powers. Strength from Siva, the fire, death, and recreation from Hronmir, clairvoyance, war tactics, memorization, and divine grace from Anapel, the power boost and dimensional travel of Zanuz, aka Yuga Khan, willpower, immortality, and indestructibility of 8, and the magic of Mamaragan. This is both one of his most powerful and most recent forms. Number 2. Spawn. The 2 eternal brothers of God and the devil had and have power far beyond any mortal could ever hope to achieve. Because of that, when they decide they don't agree on certain things and go to war, it causes quite the ruckus. And of course, they choose Earth as their battleground. The mother, who is like their mother, needs to put this to an end and calls upon Spawn to do it. In order for Spawn to end their little squabble that made its way to Earth, he had to get a wee power boost. Actually, it's more like a god-sized power boost. The mother tasked Spawn with eating the forbidden fruit to grant him a kind of godhood. And in this new form, Spawn wipes out all the forces of both heaven and hell. Yes, God and Satan eventually do defeat him, but Spawn is soon resurrected and uses his powers to lock away the brothers and resurrect all the mortals who were killed in their war. Number 1. Jean Grey. Jean was far from a goddess in the beginning, but after her death in Uncanny X-Men number 101, she was resurrected as the powerful Phoenix. New costume, new power upgrade, and a far more important role in the X-Men storylines. Over the next few years, Chris Claremont revealed the power of the Phoenix was a cosmic entity representing life that latched onto Jean's psyche. It began corrupting her, culminating in the Dark Phoenix Saga, one of the most famous storylines in comic books, and it saw Jean rise to unimaginable power. Enough power that she consumed a star and killed a planet as a result. Realizing just how dangerous she was, Jean took her own life in the legendary Uncanny X-Men number 137 in 1980. She has been in and out of life ever since, and in and out of the Phoenix part as well. It's extremely confusing, but she gains godlike powers every time the Phoenix come back to play.
Number 10. Storm. Aurora Monroe is descended from a long line of African priestesses who all have white hair and the potential to use magic. Her mother was a princess who married an American photojournalist and moved with him to Manhattan, where Storm was born. They moved to Cairo when she was 6 months old, but when she was 5, her parents were killed, leaving her an orphan. She lived as a thief for a while before eventually making her way to Kenya, where her weather-controlling powers made her be worshipped as a goddess. Now, this doesn't make her a full-on god, but that came later when Black Panther told her that her ancestors had passed down the gift of godhood, and with the power of the faith of the Wakandans, she leveled up and became a true goddess. Number 9. Wonder Woman. As stated in the intro, we aren't talking about characters who were always God, but Diana, Prince of the Amazons, is technically a demigod, so she manages to qualify. Despite her half-god status, she did eventually join the big leagues when she became the mentee to Ares, the god of war. The two worked together until they were forced to fight the Firstborn. Firstborn wants to kill Ares to become the new god of war, and although Diana and Ares valiantly hold off Firstborn's army, Diana is eventually forced to kill Ares herself so that she will inherit the mantle instead of the villain. This makes Wonder Woman the new god of war, a role she keeps until Superman Wonder Woman Futures End #1, when she ascends to Mount Olympus and becomes the new god of peace instead. Number 8. Doctor Strange. After Stephen Strange lost to Loki in a magic tournament, he was stripped of his home, his cloak, the Eye of Agamotto, and the title of Sorcerer Supreme. This put Strange at a severe disadvantage against Loki, and he was forced to travel to Asgard to find the mythical World Tree to try and even the playing field. After sacrificing the body of a dead dog to the tree granted Strange a huge amount of magical power, more than he had ever known. So much magic that he declared that he was no longer mortal, but was now the god of magic. He used these new powers to fight Loki before teaming up with him and Sentry to defeat the Void. It turned out that the tournament had actually been an illusion by Loki to trick Strange into giving up the Sorcerer Supreme mantle. So, Strange gave up his godlike powers and returned to the humble position of being one of the strongest magic users in the Marvel Universe. Number 7. Hal Jordan. When Darkseid and the Anti-Monitor went to war and Darkseid was defeated, it left a huge power vacuum in the universe. Darkseid's forces, the Parademons, attacked the base of the Green Lantern Corps, the planet Oa, in order to claim their power battery for their own and merge it with their own alien tech, the Mother Box. They fought off all the Green Lanterns and all seemed lost until the arrival of Earth's most powerful Green Lantern, Hal Jordan. Hal merged with the battery and the Mother Box, and as a result was given unlimited power and knowledge and became the God of Light. He used this power to wipe out the Parademons and restore the fallen Lanterns to life. He recognized that being a god would mean giving up his free will and decided to abandon his new powers and return to being a regular Green Lantern. Number 6. Spawn. When the demonically powered hero Spawn discovered that his ex's children were really Satan and God, he came into contact with an even more cosmically powered being known as Mother, who had granted God and Satan their powers and given them Earth as a realm to rule. Disappointed with her children's constant fighting, she decided to give Spawn the infamous forbidden fruit, which will give him the necessary powers to defeat the two opposing forces and force them into peace. He defeats God and Satan with his new god powers, and then to top it off, recreates the Earth. Number 5. Superman. During the build-up to the Darkseid War that gave Hal Jordan his god powers, Superman and Lex Luthor were transported to Apokolips and forced to work together to fight off Darkseid's forces. They realized that since there was no sunlight, Superman was rapidly losing his powers. Lex came up with a cunning plan and told the Man of Steel to fly into one of the planet's fire pits, as they were technically filled with the fire of a sun. Although it returned his powers, the fire pit's dark energy transformed Superman into a negative god of strength with none of the morals that prevents the Man of Steel from going full Homelander on everyone. He beat the crap out of Luthor, destroying his armor and telling him that if he ever returned to Earth, the God of Strength would kill him. Number 4. Wolverine. When the X-Men were forced to face off against the Horde, a villain being powered by a crystal called the Ultimate Vision, the mutants seemed to have met their match as Horde defeated all of them, killing Wolverine in the process. Fortunately for fans of the fuzzy Canadian, a single drop of his blood fell onto the crystal, which resulted in him being resurrected with all the powers of a cosmic god. Rather than use the powers to make every redhead in the Marvel Universe fall in love with him, Wolverine used his new powers to defeat the Horde and then gave the powers up. Which is noble, but let's be real, it's probably a lot easier to give up godlike powers when you're already functionally immortal. Number 3. Batman. After years of putting up with the other Justice League members poking fun at the fact that he had no powers, Batman got the last laugh when he was granted the cosmic powers of a god. This was before the Darkseid War, when the heroes had to face off with the Keeper of Metron, the keeper of all knowledge in the universe, who sits atop the powerful Mobius chair. Wonder Woman used her lasso to dethrone Metron, but the chair was about to summon a boom tube to escape. In order to keep the Mobius chair from disappearing, Batman muttered a quick, "It's Mobin time," to himself and sat on the chair himself, being instantly transformed into the God of Knowledge. His first use of the infinite knowledge was to confirm the identity of his parents' killer and to try and find out the true identity of the Joker. Even as a god, he was shocked when the chair informed him that there was actually 3 Jokers, but that's a different story. Number 2, the Flash. Despite all the flack Superman gets for being overpowered, no one really seems to talk about how ridiculously overpowered the Scarlet Speedster is. During the Darkseid War, Darkseid tried to win the conflict using one of his greatest weapons, the Black Racer, who had become the new god of death. The Anti-Monitor countered this by taking control of Barry Allen and making him merge with the Black Racer, resulting in the Flash becoming the new god of death. It was this god who the Anti-Monitor used to kill Darkseid, creating a power vacuum in the universe whose ripple effects are still being felt in the DC universe to this day. Number 1. Iron Man. When Iron Man and his space friends went off planet to fight the villain Korvac, who planned to use the power cosmic to give himself godlike powers, Iron Man was unable to stop him. In a desperate last-ditch effort, Tony decided to also expose himself to the power cosmic. He was granted vast godlike powers and used them to fight Korvac in a massive interstellar battle until the gods of the Marvel Universe intervened and took Korvac into custody. Tony decided he would use his new powers to fix Earth and started by granting everyone in New York a Tony Stark level IQ. Although Reed Richards complained that this had actually made him dumber, everything seemed to be going alright. However, as usually happens when Iron Man plays God, things soon began to go horribly wrong.